Welcome to Peak Humans. Today I have an incredible guest, Brian Mac Mahon, the global growth hacker and co-founder of Expert Dojo VC, which is one of the fastest growing accelerator and venture capital firms in the world. With over 300 investments, Brian and his team specialize in helping startups scale rapidly by providing them with the tools, mentorship, and funding they need to succeed. Brian's expertise lies in consumer emotional resonance and empathy, understanding what truly connects people to products and brands. In this episode, we explore how emotional intelligence shapes business success, how Expert Dojo is disrupting the VC landscape, and what it truly takes to build a thriving company in today's fast-moving world. If you're an entrepreneur, an investor, or someone passionate about innovation, this episode is packed with insights that can transform your approach to business and growth. Let's dive in. Brian, what a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, my friend. Great to be here.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to jump in here with you. I've already learned so much by hanging around you when I'm hanging out in Santa Monica with you. But before we start, the typical things we're going to talk about are how to build a startup, how to make $1 billion business, and all those amazing things you're an expert at. But one thing you told me before we even jumped on this recording is something you just said is age is irrelevant. How you embrace life is not. Can you elaborate on that for us?
So I had the great pleasure. I believe that I embrace this. I've been very fortunate since a kid. My dad had awful, terrible rheumatoid arthritis, which is a terrible thing because it means that if you're gonna lift a cup, if he was lifting a cup, he'd lift it with his hands like this because he couldn't even use his hands. But he never had a sad day in his life. And he's like, look, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I got great kids, I got a great family, I got great friends, I do the stuff that I love doing. I got some pain I got to deal with. Everybody's got some kind of pain they got to deal with. That's not something to be worried about. So I think I was just very fortunate as a kid that even though I saw somebody who I loved grow up with the most debilitating disease that you can possibly have, I didn't see somebody while I was growing up with the most debilitating disease that you could ever have because of how his mindset and how his attitude was. And I think that stuck with me through life in that there's 8 billion people on this world. No matter which way I play today, there is going to be 7.9 billion people who have worse things happen to them today. No matter what happens, somebody turns us down, we lose a contract, a startup fails, whatever. So I'm the luckiest guy that exists on the planet. And so when you have that mindset, but at the same time, you're aware of the things that you need to do to embrace life. You can't just have age is irrelevant on its own. You have to tie it into something that allows you to make age irrelevant. So that was one side of it. I think I was just super fortunate. And I was mentioning to you earlier on, I have this phenomenal new friendship that I've built up with a chap who's 94 years old and has got one of the most colorful histories that I've ever heard. And he goes down the gym every day and he boxes down the gym and he never misses a workout. And I'm not talking about the kind of boxing that you generally will do in Santa Monica when you pretend to box. I'm talking about real boxing down the gym at 94 years old. And he said it to me in those words and it allowed me to put that in a place where I thought, yeah, that's the life that everybody should want to live. I'm 55 years old. I feel great. I don't fear anybody younger than me. Running, walking, talking, thinking, anything. I just fear if I have embraced life as much as I could have in the last 24 hours.
So cool. I love that. And I think in the context that you were saying, right, where it's some people think they're too old to do something, right? But this guy's 94 and he's still going. He's not thinking about when he's going to die, if not going to die. It's every moment, like you just said, this 24 hours is the greatest gift that we got.
Yeah.
What's something you learned? I'm sure you learned a lot of amazing things from your dad. He sounds like an incredible man to have that mindset, given the challenges he had. What's a lesson or a mindset or a belief system that kind of sticks with you? And again, I'm sure there's a lot, but what's one that comes up for you now?
No, it's with my dad.
Yeah.
With my dad, my dad and my mom were my mom's still alive, but my dad and my mom, two very different people. With my dad, that was it. I didn't really want to take anything else because that thing on its own was so powerful. that it's really
Yeah.
the secret to life. Like there's no other secret to life. We're all going to have teeth that are going to hurt. We're all going to have like bones that are going to get broken. We're all going to have kids who are going to break our heart. We're all going to like break the hearts of our own parents. We're all going to have like relationships that are going to be disastrous, jobs that are going to fail. People are going to be like, it's all going to happen. But if you don't enter into the day with, first of all, like a huge appreciation of what most of the people listening to this podcast have, I'm sorry, like that's not fair to all of the people who have a far worse time than you do and all of the opportunities that you really have. I think of it when I speak to our startups, I think of it, I will normally, I chose a very specific path over the last 10, 15 years when I started to really embrace this philosophy. And that path is the path I'm in right now, which is VC and growth hacking. But I didn't choose the late stage companies where everything was already made, the meal was already prepared and put on the table, and you just had to decide if you could make a little bit of money from reselling that meal. I chose the early stage in founders because that beginning of creativity that those founders have, that's the essence of everything that I'm speaking about today, because I feed off that energy of a new company that's starting out and the ideas and the thoughts and the hopes and the wishes and everything that goes with it. And it's just a beautiful thing. And so what I had with my dad on one side of it really helped me with that, because it allowed me to say, look, you may feel you're facing the impossible as an early stage founder trying to break through where tens of thousands will fail to build a multi-$100 million company or billion-dollar company, but you can do it. But it was actually my mom that taught me the other attributes that I needed to actually make that become a reality. Because you got to be a tough person to break through. And you got to be prepared to walk on glass, smash through windows, go through doors, have the skin of an alligator. Like you need all of that. And that was my mom. And so for me, yeah, like you wake up in the day bulletproof, and then you go out searching for people with guns. And I mean that in a very analogical way. I probably shouldn't even use that analogy today. But like you go out every single morning like that, and then you never have a bad day.
Wow. That's incredible. So just by example from your dad, and it sounds like your mom taught you the grit and well, yeah, grit. That's a huge one that I talk about too with my clients as well. Amazing. I read a quote from you in I can't remember where I was doing some research, but one thing you said is you love listening to entrepreneurs and people who want to be entrepreneurs who've got some wonderful change mechanism that they have for the world, either environmentally or with a new tech or product that's really going to make life better, a better place. So I love that that's kind of what you're hunting for, right? To like help those founders grow that and step more into that.
Man, it was where I was hunting for. But
Yeah.
life, gives you lessons, and sometimes you got to do something with the lemons and turn them into something. So
Yeah.
my realization, look, I started Expert Dojo because I had a belief that the venture capital system was very stacked towards highly privileged people that were connected with venture capitalists that had a ton of money behind them, and they would create an anti-competitive environment, and in so doing, destroy incredible competitor entrepreneurs, and really America and the rest of the world in doing it. I felt that the system had been turned into such a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme that it was hurting everybody, and it just wasn't fair. And so at that time, I believed that there were really great entrepreneurs out there, but I wanted to help everyone. So I was like, hey, man, you're a woman, you got a great idea. Cool. Come on in. We'll give you $50,000. We'll help you develop that idea and turn it into something great. And I realized fairly quickly that not everybody is in the moment where they can execute. And sometimes, your company is not the one. Like, just very simply, it's a little bit like the Matrix, right? It's like Neo. It's like sometimes your company is not the one, and sometimes the world is not the one. Sometimes you are trying to build out a product where everything against you is so unfair and so stacked that actually breaking through is far too close to impossible for it to be worth going on this journey, on this trajectory. You need to go in a different way. And sometimes, as hard as it is to say, you are not the one. And you
Yeah.
haven't learned enough. You're not good enough. And the problem is, like, we grew up in this namby-pamby environment where everybody's special Everybody gets a prize just for participating. Everybody can do whatever they want to do. And I'm fucking sorry, they can't. Like, you can't be a psychologist if you spent 2 weeks in Santa Monica College learning about psychology. Like, you just can't, because that's wrong. You can't be like a farmer if you just happen to have gone to the farm for the weekend and you're like, how hard can it be to just plant crops and pick them up again? Like, you need to go through, and I don't know if I'm talking about the 10,000 hour rule, or if I'm talking about the 10,000 execution rule, or I'm talking about the headspace rule. There are things that need to be in place in that moment to be a great entrepreneur. Like, I'm starting right now, we're incubating a company out of Expert Dojo, which is called Data Centers. And that data centers is going to be 10 acres, like a $200 million raise for 10 acres of land that we're going to turn into data centers. And we're going to do that 10 times around the world. So we're going to raise $2 billion over the next 3 to 4 years to build out what we believe is going to be one of the most intelligent infrastructure plays. We call it like family housing for data. And so I can tell you, at 55 years old, there is no time in my life up to this moment right now that I would have been the one. No time. And so I'm not saying to people, don't do stuff. What I'm saying to people is, be honest with yourself about the best skills that you need to have the highest probability to be successful. Today, this is that moment. And I embrace that. 20 years ago, I might have thought I was okay, but I sucked. And I would never have been able to do this. So just sometimes you're not the one. So now I value incredible executors whose time has come with the products that can truly transform the world with absolute full dedication and best probability of being able to do so. Like, that's it. But the execution comes right at the beginning.
That's so cool. It's kind of ironic, right? Where it's like, when you want to be the one, you're not ready to be the one. But when you kind of like go of the idea of wanting to be the one, then you kind of become the one, right? Because you're not even attached to that idea. Or that phrase where the person that wants to be president shouldn't be president, and the people that don't want to be president should be the president.
Yeah, but it becomes obvious to everybody when you are the one. That's the funny thing. You find that like you cut through butter much easier when that moment is in place, because people have seen you go on the journey. I mean, like, over the last years, I've learned about brand, I've learned about outreach, I've learned about data, I've learned about startups. I've worked with 300 startups that we've invested in and spoken to tens of thousands before that. Like, I've spent 10 years honing my craft in this area to get to a place for one audition to do the biggest thing that I'll ever do in my entire life. And that's the only way it should be.
Family housing for data.
Yeah, family housing for data. I mean, he'd kill me. He'd kill me if my co-founder would kill me if he heard me say this. But I feel so in tune with where the world is going right now. And if you said to me in 6 years' time, what do I think is going to be the biggest thing? I would say it's definitely going to be longevity. I'm totally sure of it. But today, everybody is so fixated on AI, learning models, compute edge, DeepSeek makes open AI, presidential orders to like turn entire like states into, like, all of that stuff is happening. And so because of that, I'm the one. The thing is the one, because we know data centers are like desperately needed, and the world is the one. So it's all aligned in one place. And I think it's really important for every entrepreneur to respect the process. Don't just think that you're in a place and it's okay and it's easy and you deserve it because you're in this particular moment right now. You got to work to have the best probability of getting there.
Yeah. The singularity. It's all the one. Yeah. So at Expert Dojo, you provide entrepreneurs with the tools and the resources, the support, the mentorship, and videos, and so on and so forth to help them become successful.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the beginning, that was the idea. At the beginning, like, I launched a growth hacking agency because the idea was, hey, startups really want growth. And then, like, to my horror and dismay, I realized that startups don't want growth. Startups just want to beg for money. And so everybody has become professional beggars. And you have folks who are out on the street out there, and poor people who are in terrible places. And then you have folks who are in nice offices with PowerPoint presentations. And it's exactly the same. There's literally no difference. Both of them are asking for money from people with the vast probability of zero return ever coming back. right? And so I just felt it was crazy. Like the more startups we would speak to, and we would say, hey, we're going to help you. We work in early stage. We want to help you build your brand and build your personal brand and build your vision and create Horizon 3, and then create systems whereby you can actually grow as an organization. And then we're going to look at like the outreach that you can do. And we're going to look at like cold calling. Hey, you're going to do 50 cold calls a day because that's cool. And you're going to do emails and you can do LinkedIn. And they're like, yeah, but I could just like raise $1 million. I'm like, or you could just fucking do that. But like, that's not necessarily the best thing to do for you long term. And nobody cared and nobody listened. So I thought, fine, we'll raise a fund, we'll invest money into startups, and then we'll force them to do the right thing. You know, it's a little bit like people putting on seatbelts in cars in the early days. You had to force them to do it with monster fines, or they were never going to do it because it didn't feel cool. Even though intuitively it makes so much sense to have a seatbelt on. Why would anybody not do that in a car? And so I put the investment into the companies. We've invested now in 300 companies. We don't do growth hacking for anybody outside the companies that we actually invest in. And then when we invest in the companies, we bring them through a very rigorous program over 4 weeks. And at the end of that 4 weeks program, we'll then do a full audit on the probability of a company achieving an increase in valuation to get to their $100 million valuation within a specific period of time. And then we attribute a score to that. And that score then is where they rank against all of our other companies. And some people are first and some people are last. And then we share that publicly with our investors so that our investors can tell which of them, based on a growth trajectory, has got the highest and lowest probability of giving them a return. You know, when you get older, one of the things is you have less of a propensity to care about the bullshit. And so for me, I don't care anymore. I just don't care. The journey and the purity of the journey is the only thing that matters.
That's awesome, man. I love that. The purity and the joy of the journey is all that matters. Yep.
Yeah. Well, even like how pure the journey, like it's got to be pure. If you're going to go into a relationship with someone, go into a relationship with someone, like make that, it's a pure journey. Like why poison that? And so I think fundraising has its place. I'm an investor, but I don't think the place is always at the very beginning when you just go to everybody and all your friends and your mom and your dad and everybody else and ask them for money, which they've worked so hard to try and get, on this kind of pipe dream that you have that you can build someone. And then you use a Mark Zuckerberg as an example as to how they can make tons of money. You ain't Mark. Like that's the thing. And so in this precise moment, why don't you just pick up the phone, which you're already paying your T-Mobile your monthly payment for, and just call like 50 people between 7 and 9 in the morning. Like, why don't you do that? And then why don't you build a great product based on your engagement with people? And that product shouldn't be minimum viable, shitty product. Like imagine having a minimum viable date or a minimum viable marriage. And I'm not even going to mention minimum viable sex, but like it's stupid. All stupid. Like, why don't you build a lovable product? And that doesn't mean that all the features have to be in place. They don't. But the feature or two features that are in place are complete and they are transformative. And until you have that, don't poison the well of your consumer with a shoddy product. And so it's all part of the pure journey.
Dude, that's so cool. I feel like you just inverted all the ways people have been like preaching about how to build a startup over the last like 10, 20 years now.
Yeah,
right.
That's my objective. I want to burn it all down. Because it's not helping. What it does is it creates a propaganda machine for people to be able to manipulate the system. And that doesn't help. The customer is the only investor that matters. No other investor matters. And when you show, look, if you become if you go through oh gosh, I trying to think of the school, it was the Julian School of Music up in
Juilliard, right, in New York.
Sorry, yeah. If you like practice since you're 4 and then you go through Juilliard and then you're like the most important violinist that's ever come into an orchestra, then people should shower gifts and money and adulation and investment and everything on top of you. But you got to at least start to go on that journey. Right. And that's my only point. My only point is like build something beautiful for people who want to experience wonder. And then what will happen is everybody will come in around.
Build something beautiful for people that want to experience wonder. That's a great one too. Yep. And it's true. It's so wild. And again, there's double-edged sword for everything in life, right? Like obviously we're blessed with all the technology and the way the world is exponentially progressing so quick. But also the flip side, and I read this somewhere else, I can't remember where, but like society's kind of losing, and I think it cycles, right? I think it'll cycle back in, but society's losing like the appreciation for like mastery of a craft and like like becoming good at something, right? Like you just said, right? Like a person that goes to Juilliard from 4 years old to beyond, like people aren't really talking about, I want to be really good at like carving wood or like coding a computer even, or like whatever. People are just thinking about how to get followers and viewers and blow up, right?
Yeah, but the world has changed, and I recognize that. And I think change is okay. Change is fine. Change is good,
Yeah.
right? Because it can do really good things too. And in 10 years' time, we might be talking about the fact that cancer doesn't exist anymore, the way that AIDS doesn't really
Yeah.
exist anymore the way it used to. And so that's wonderful. And maybe there's some necessary things that we have to go through to get to that level of consciousness or that level of technology to get there. So I'm totally fine with that. I think the
Yeah.
big problem is when we manipulate, like let's take OpenAI versus DeepSeek. And I know
Yeah.
that DeepSeek built a bunch of stuff on the back of OpenAI, and I know that they did probably use, I think they used NVIDIA chips to get where they were going to go to. But OpenAI spent $1 billion plus building out a platform, and DeepSeek spent a couple of million. And even if we multiply it by 10, say 50 million, to build out a better supposed solution that they had there. And so in any normal world, the CEO of OpenAI would be fired. But like, why are you paying $5-6 million a year for your top technologists? Like, why are you doing that? Why are you wasting investors' money and then pumping up the value of the product with such a huge amount of hype that you do it? And then when a competitor comes in, how does that CEO deals with it? Well, rather than saying, actually, a competitor has just kicked our ass with a better model that they've built for literally 1,000th of the price that it cost us to build it for, he said, the Chinese are coming after us. We need to invest more. And so that's the world we're living in. Like the bigger challenge I think we're facing today is we live in a world of manipulation and disinformation on a monster way. And that's why actually, even though, the whole degen movement in crypto kind of drives me nuts, I do think it's our only savior, because they're not prepared to take it anymore. Like the old song, I suppose. They're not prepared to take it anymore. And now they're building their meme coins because they can.
Yeah.
Their top performing coins are called Butthole because it can be called Butthole. And they're messing with the centralized establishment in a way never done before. I think Bitcoin is like one of the most exciting movements that there's ever been, because everybody tried to destroy it because they couldn't win from it. And then when they realized it couldn't be destroyed because it was faceless, then it was great. So disinformation and manipulation on a level that has never happened in the world today. And I think this stuff is going to get much worse. So yeah, I'm all for decentralization and messing with centralized systems.
Yeah. Decentralizing mindsets too.
Decentralizing, oh my God, like you're so right. I mean, look, my kid, I've tried so hard, like through his life, to unschool him and make sure that he listens to not a single word he's taught in school, because everybody goes to school to be turned into slaves. That's the only reason for school, is so that you can be a strong enough slave that you can serve our masters who are different today. Our masters today are people that want us to be in employment for a certain period of time so that we're generating enough revenue, which is driving enough taxes, which is sustaining a system where a very, very, very small proportion of people would benefit from that system. And that's not okay. I would love to see our kids being taught about financial management, money management, food subsidization, making sure that they can actually build a life that they're driving for themselves, rather than one that they're enslaved into. I had a conversation a lot of the time, because we're so good at branding. A lot of folks will come into us just from very strange places, like politicians and other folks, and look to build the branding around that. And I was with one recently, and we talked about financial hopelessness. And what was so interesting was we were looking at California and saying, well, hang on, if financial hopelessness is like the biggest singular problem facing California right now, how many people are facing that? And then we're like, shoot, it's like 35 or 40 million people are facing financial hopelessness. Well, okay, what's the face of that person facing financial hopelessness? Is it an African American? Is it a Mexican? Is it an Irish American? Is it an American? What does it look like? Is it a poor person? Is it somebody living in Compton, or is it somebody living in Santa Monica? And as we drilled into it, it's somebody earning $150,000 a year who can't afford to make it to the end of the month. Like, that's the destruction of everything American, the absolute destruction. And so why feel sorrier for those people than other people? Well, because if I lived in a really tough place in the projects, and like maybe my parents never gone to college, and maybe I'd never had a job, at least there's hope for me or my kid. Right? I know I can get out of that. I know that, like, if I can, maybe I can't do it. Maybe my kid, and I can get him through college, or I can get him in doing trading or doing something else. And maybe, just maybe, my kid can earn $150,000 a year. Yeah, but they're going to be worse off than you. Literally, they're going to have more debts than you're going to have when you were like 2 generations beforehand. That's where your dream is. Terrifying, right? And we are being educated to continue this. None of that is changing because it serves the system. We serve the system.
Do you think, hey, I don't know if you read the book, The Sovereign Individual, but it talks about how feudalism was the previous system, right, that controlled everybody. Now government is kind of the new version of feudalism, right? They could tax everybody and so on and so forth. But then also the sovereign part of the book is where technologies like AI, blockchain is enabling people to break out of that system. But obviously the forces that be don't want that to happen, obviously, right? So it's going to take some time. Do you see us being able to break out of that eventually? And because of these technologies, or?
I think it's very hard without our education changing for our kids. Because the thing is this, look, my kid was taught his whole life that he should still work for people. And even though like his generation, they try not to think that way, and they try to think, but they're not being given the tools to do the things they want to do. So why do I love early stage startup? Because I think everybody should have the opportunity of starting a business. I think everybody should literally be trained from the age of 5 years old how to self-sustain. And it's not the same for everyone. Like, there's some people who like desperately want to like save the world and be doctors and nurses and, Doctors Without Borders and wonderful things like that. And then there's other people who really want to work inside the environment, and that's great. And then there's other people who want to do drop shipping, but there's like 100 ways to make money. All these things we're talking about are our passions. And what happens is we reach a stage later in life where we're either forced to choose our compromise between our passions and the things that are going to make us money. But if we can focus on our passions being the thing that we will never give up on, and ways to subside in the meantime or at that time, like for me, this thing of venture capital is a way that I'll make tons of money so that I can follow my passion of making sure that everybody in the world is able to decentralize away from the system and be able to build their own companies. And a company could earn $1,000 a month for a kid in Africa because he's drop shipping some product from China, which is going directly over to somebody in Connecticut who doesn't even know that there's an African kid in the middle of it who has this amazing knowledge of SEO and this great knowledge of social media, and who's looping in multiple influencers that are selling the product across the world. And then every single day, week, month, there's like whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Which is cash coming in to that kid's phone. And so we have the ability to really build beautiful things. And like, do we need to be in these great big shiny cities with gorgeous apartments? No, we don't, right? Could we be, there's like 70% of the land or something, which is still owned by the government, but they choose not to give that land up. And right, but could we find a place, around a place, like you're in PR, right? And so you've chosen that. People have chosen to go there because they say, I don't want to play this game anymore. I go out. But what if you'd known it 10, 15 years beforehand? And what if we really listened to like some of the really clever things that are we're being even like Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Like, it's a great book. But it's like pleasurable reading rather than mandatory learning. It should be mandatory learning. They need to understand that although you're happy now as a 15, 16-year-old kid, you are going to be miserable at 55 or 60 when you can't afford to pay for anything. Fight that now. Prepare yourself. Put yourself in a place where you got, like, I would say to my kid, get to 30 and have $5 to $7 million in the bank. It's actually all you need, because we get you a return of like 10% every single year, that's 500 grand a year. You're good. Like, I don't care where you live, you're good. And as long as you don't do stupid stuff, like don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, don't do multiple marriages, don't do stupid stuff. Don't live in like silly, high, expensive rental places. Like, live the life you want to live. And then you can have a great thing. So yeah, look, man, I'm in this wonderful place now of I get to be surrounded by the like you see them behind me, but there's like, they're all the way down there. They're all our startups and all the companies that we invest in. And so for me, like, I get this wonderful, great life where I get to be surrounded by this creativity of these people who have chosen to break free from the bondage of that centralized system, which is telling them to do something different. And they win, they lose, as long as like it follows through, they're all winning because they're winning up here. And so with that, I also have the knowledge that 55 years on this planet brings me, which is that, you know, I would have done different for myself. If I could go back to a younger me at like 17, 18, 19, I wouldn't have done any of the stuff that I did for the following 20 years. Right. And so that's what the world needs to know. And I think that's what really breeds happiness, because you live your more authentic life because you're less afraid of like the stupid stuff of that people think about you and are you successful or are you not successful? You're just enjoying what the present is bringing.
What's your blueprint for happiness?
I just don't think about it. I don't think about being happy, because if I thought about being happy,
Yeah.
I just want to go to a club, or I'd want to go to, and then I'd want a car, and then I'd want a nicer car. Like, I had the same car for 10 years. I literally only 12. I only changed it because like my wife was like majorly embarrassed because we had like chunks out of it. But like, I don't look at material things. I think we wake up in the morning and we either want to wake up with gusto or we don't. And I've wanted to wake up with gusto every day for as long as I can remember. And so I guess that like inherently means that like what I'm doing makes me really happy. So the moment, but if folks are waking up in the morning and they're not waking up like that, then those blessings are not coming through the right way. And then you have to question it. So yeah, just that first 3 minutes in the morning, do you want to get out of bed? Is like, it tells everything.
Yeah. Do you think everybody should start their own company?
Yes. But not as a founder. Not everybody is a founder, because not everybody can be a founder. So when I go back to the point of when you asked earlier on about you know, everybody, we should bring technology and it should be wonderful and great. It's like, well, not everybody can execute. Not everybody's in the moment, and the company's not in the moment, and the time is not in the moment. But the thing is this, like, there's a process to that pure journey. And the first process is we have to know the thing that we really love and the thing that we really want. And like, we have to then say, is that a hobby that needs to be supplemented by building something that we may not love, but it's okay because we get to get this thing that we really love and that can bring transformative change. Are the two of them the same thing? For me, the two are the same thing. Early stage startup, I love the entire experience, the space, everything. And so this piece of it is like venture capitalists, bring in loads of money, and then be allowed to be able to build out schools, universities, like everything, all the way across the board. So I get very fortunate in this 10, 15 years of my life for both of these things to be combined in the same place. That wasn't the case for my whole life. And I think there's a journey to getting to this place. Like when I mentioned, like I'm in my moment now to be able to do that data center project or anything else, it's not just because I've learned stuff. And it's not even just because I've experienced stuff. It's also because I've surrounded myself with the people that can help me get there. And so the other thing I would teach in school, along with financial knowledge and the understanding of what money is, like real understanding of money. Like, I want to know, how does money grow? Like, what's the difference between a treasury bill and actually trading stocks and doing options and Bitcoin and like meme stocks and bonds? And like, I want to know I don't know the difference. Nobody knows it. And real estate, and what's the thing with returns, and how does that work? And then how do I get to reach a certain amount of money that I make? So I tie it into the returns. And then what does my wife look like? What does my life look like that I can tie it into those returns to try and get there? Like, that thing is really cool, but that's one piece. The other piece is there are things that you need to learn about success that begin at the very start, right? And you have to learn about that stuff of success, or you're not going to be able to get there. And that's a whole learning on its own, but it is not math, history, geography, Latin and those things. Like, it is about learning about success for you to live the best life that you can live, including how do you treat your kids if you're going to have kids which will be brought up? How do you eat to make sure that you're not some idiot like eating food which is directly going to poison you and give you heart disease and cancer for sure, if you don't get diabetes killing you before you get there, right? And so like that is learning about success, about learning about like filling your brain with the things that can actually get you to a place where you enjoy life. And then I'm just going to finish you with the final piece because I know we're towards the end. You got to surround yourself with the people that are going to help you get there and the people that you can add value to. There's a huge circle it forward part of this, not pay it forward, circle it forward, whereby you're giving, they're giving, other people are giving. Whoever's not giving in the giving chain, screw them. They're out of the giving chain. But then you keep bringing people in and you got to keep layering up. You got to keep layering up. And so that 94-year-old man that I told you is like hugely interesting to me, not just from an intellectual level and what he's achieved, but also because he worked for JFK, like he worked with Biden, he works with Trump, he's at Mar-a-Lago, like his level of influence is incredibly high. But that's also a burden that I have because I have a debt to be able to make sure that the value I provide is high in a different place. So you gotta build your network high, intentionally, every day, with value that your network is going to get from being around you as well. And it's not perfect, but if you don't do it, then you're going to end up with the same losers that you started out with in the first place. And it's not going to help you get there, even if it does, even if there's some folks to go for a beer in the bar with.
Wow. That's amazing. This could be a 101 course.
Need as much self-help as I can get.
That's incredible. I want to circle back to what you said in the beginning about how people want to raise money versus like just do the work and make sales calls, right? It's like with some of my clients, it's a similar thing, right? They're running these crypto projects and I'm like, they want to go raise money. And I'm like, dude, let's just go make money and like, we'll have the money to build the business, right? So
well, crypto is different. Crypto is different because it's just a pure Ponzi scheme. Like everybody agrees to it. Like there's no product, there's no value, there's no transformative impact, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And so when you just, it took me ages to embrace crypto for what it was, that it's a defiance movement. That's all. And I messed around at the very beginning. I was like, well, we need to work on the product and the product fit. And there's like, there is no product, dude. Just get over it, right? The meme coin is called Butthole. It's valued at like $3 or $4 billion. It is what it is. Like the Trump coin, there's no value, there's no product, there's no utility. There's just a bunch of people speculating and having fun. And so when you just have to, sometimes you just have to embrace stuff for like what it really is. And the thing with crypto is, hey, if the game of, Hawk Tuah is to hype the crap out of something and everybody knows the game. Everybody playing the game knows the game. It's okay. Like they're going into it with eyes wide open. Then you make sure Hawk Tuah is like pumped to the absolute max. Now, look, I personally, layer in do no harm with stuff that I do. It's just me. But like, crypto is crypto. And if people are playing coins, then really they're just trading. And if they're doing day trading, then the objective is to make sure that your day trade performs as well as it can possibly can, which means that your brand and your messaging needs to be incredibly powerful. I think when we bring it over to areas like medcare, healthcare, or if we bring it over to, financial technology, or bring it over to like Web 2 space, it's just different. Because now you have to build a meaning with a customer. But in Web3, you still have to build a community, but the community are just driven by something different. So I think the same applies. You make sure that you build up your influence. You got to have folks around you who sound and look pretty good, or nobody's going to believe in you. You got to build up your community, or what the hell are you selling? You got to make sure that you're loud in your social and the engagement on your social is high, or nobody's listening to you in the first place. And it's just a different structure, but the principle is exactly the same. Don't just wake up one morning and think somebody's going to give you $1 million just because you're pretty. It doesn't work like that.
Yep. So now it's about AI and data. You said in the next few years, 6 years, 5 years, you think it'll be more about longevity. What do you see happening in longevity in the short-term future?
I'm already seeing it. So we're seeing cities that are being built, like Lake Nunez over in Florida is a great city, which was started off by a fellow called George Soros's partner back in the day when he was causing destruction in the United Kingdom. And he's built out this city, like a city just outside Florida. It's an unbelievable place. It's a peak performance city. You would love it. And it's
What's it called? Where is it?
Lake Nunez, something like that.
Florida. Okay.
Yeah, in Florida, right. Amazing city. Everything is peak performance. The houses are smart houses. The police, not all of them, I'm sure, but they're drones. The buses are autonomous buses. The places that you go to, even the accelerators, even if you go to a gym, they're not called gyms. They're called maximum performance centers, and everything in there is about maximizing your performance. It's like, it goes back to my whole thing is like, age is not relevant. It's just like how you embrace your life is. So if you're going to go to a gym, are you just going to go there and just go like this for like 45 minutes? Are you going to go there to boost your peak performance? And so it's happening. And there is more discussions about food. America is just an abomination, like period, when it comes to food and health. It's so wrong. And look, there's plenty of things happening and not happening with Trump that I like vehemently disagree with and vehemently agree with, right? But one of the things I really hope RFK is going to do, I hope he is going to go to war on the genocidal lunatics that are selling food in this country. I hope he destroys them, pulls them apart, finds out where they live. I hope he brings them down to rubble, because it is, somebody was talking to me about one of the crypto projects once, and they were laughingly saying it's like malware as a service. But this to me is death and destruction as a service, our healthcare system. That's all we do. So yeah, it's a problem. And so I think people are going to start getting into it. I think he'll cause some trouble there, which will be amazing. And just generally humans. And there's also a lot more people like me today who are like 55, and we feel great. I feel okay. I can go out, I can run, I'll do 7 or 8 miles, no problem. I can work 15, 16 hours a day, no problem. I'll put like a 19-year-old right beside me, and that kid's is gonna be long gone while I'm still going. It's okay, but there's lots of people like me who feel that way, right? And so what that means is like we've already embraced the concept that 55 is the new 30. Right, that's what it is. Like I'm a 30, the 1960s or 70s, I'm like 30 years old. And so if that's the case, then it's automatically brought in without it being longevity. It's about aging is irrelevant. But things are going to need to happen inside that, from food, health, lifestyle, and also environment that we live in, for age to become irrelevant. That's how we get to, it's not like the Brian Johnson rubbish that we see on TV where he's like poisoning himself to death. It's like, it's people living to 150 because they understand that Mediterranean people live longer because of how they eat. It's people living to 150 because they're making sure that they're supplementing their lifestyle with things that will keep their bones stronger, or will keep them standing up. It's like people with more knowledge. Anyway, I think it's coming. And what will happen is more and more people like that 94-year-old is going to be out there, and people are going to be like, I want to be that guy. I don't want to be in some friggin' nursing home. Like, shoot me. Like, I want to be that guy, and I want to go down the gym boxing when I'm 94 years old.
So awesome. I love that, man. Well, so if people want to check you out, they can go to expertdojo.com.
Yeah, or they can email me, brian@expertdojo.com. I'm very approachable.
Awesome. Amazing, man. Yeah, the website's great. I appreciate all the work you're doing in the world. I'm happy to be part of the Expert Dojo team on the with experts as the peak performance coach.
And I want to just like talk about that for one moment, just as we're finishing. For me, the mind is everything. It's everything. You can have an incredible product. You can have all of the skills. You can be in that place that you talk about. But if your mind is not in that place, you're dead. You can never make it. And I think one of the biggest things that we did within the startup ecosystem was to turn around and say, this is not just about raising money. It's about actually building out these pillars. And we have peak performance built in there, which is clear communication, clear thought process, and mindset as like core components of that. And you are the person that we go to when we have all of that. You have amazing videos for our founders, which we have there. And I want to put it as the absolute foundation for anybody thinking of starting a business, or anybody even embracing any of the thought processes I'm talking about. If you are not intentional about building out the right mindset so you can actually go to the place that you're going to be able to go to, you'll never make it. It's just not possible. So I appreciate very much the work that you're doing and how you're spearheading this thing. And I'm grateful to be an enthusiastic amateur in your world.
Amazing, Brian. Thank you so much for the kind words. I think that let's end it with that on that high note.
You got it. To be
Thank you,
continued.
brother.